Kevin, a wealthy man in his early 40s from Moscow, was a frequent visitor to the capital of a neighboring region for official purposes. During his visits, he became enamored with a 28-year-old unmarried woman named Sofia, who worked as an economist at a firm he dealt with. Their passionate affair unfolded and lasted for nearly a year. The course it would have taken remained uncertain until Kevin's wife discovered their relationship. As a co-founder of her husband's business and possessing a strong personality, she threatened to dismantle the family business, effectively putting an end to Kevin's extramarital affair. With two young sons aged 9 and 13 and united opposition from their relatives, the wife's stance on not accepting the mistress prevailed. Furthermore, the financial strain caused by the ongoing economic crisis in 2008 deterred Kevin, who realized he wasn't in a stable financial position to continue indulging in his desires. Ultimately, reason and practicality prevailed over raw instinct. Nonetheless, as both life and my professional experience have shown, Kevin took decisive actions to sever his ties with Sofia. He deleted her number from his cell phone, added her to the block list on social networks, and ceased visiting the city where she resided. These measures contributed to restoring peace within his family. However, regrettably, Kevin's wife failed to make the necessary adjustments to her behavior as a woman. Particularly, their intimate relationship suffered. Being a successful and physically active individual, Kevin felt unfulfilled in the bedroom, thus preserving the underlying factors that had previously driven him towards infidelity. The primary cause of husbands engaging in adultery is often attributed to their wives' failure to recognize the significance of sexual intimacy in their relationship. After 2 years had passed, Kevin's wife, like many jealous spouses, surreptitiously monitored the social media account of his former romantic interest, Sofia. To her surprise, she discovered that Sofia had not only gotten married, but had also become a mother. Believing that this revelation would permanently extinguish any lingering hopes Kevin might have had of rekindling their connection, she promptly informed him of this development. Unfortunately, upon learning that his mistress had a child, Kevin's wife became less inclined to have a third child herself. Prior to Kevin's infidelity, and even after their reconciliation, he had proposed to his wife the idea of expanding their family, as their financial situation comfortably permitted it. At the time of their reconciliation, his wife was 37 years old, and initially, she enthusiastically assured him that they would have another child. However, lacking her own personal motivation to have another child, she began to believe that their 2 children were sufficient for her husband's contentment, especially since the mistress was no longer in the picture. In her reasoning, if there was no longer a threat of a rival's child, there was no need for her to give birth herself. However, life's logic proved to be far more intricate and unpredictable than Kevin's esteemed wife had imagined. 2 years later, a total of 4 years since the affair described earlier, Kevin coincidentally encountered Sofia at Moscow's airport. He was on a business trip to a different region, while Sofia was in transit, heading to Turkey with her child. The meeting stirred up intense emotions as Kevin found himself alone at the airport, while Sofia was accompanied by her child. During their heartfelt encounter, Sofia confided in her former flame, revealing that her marriage had been devoid of love and merely a desperate attempt to move on from Kevin. Similarly, the birth of her child was an extension of the same narrative. However, neither matrimony nor the arrival of her daughter aided the lovelorn Sofia in forgetting about Kevin. Consequently, after 2 years, she could no longer bear living with an unrequited love and ultimately divorced the child's father. For over a year, Sofia has remained unmarried, dedicating herself to raising her daughter and periodically passing through Moscow during her travels. Throughout this time, she earnestly hoped for the miraculous occurrence of a reunion with her one true beloved. And now, finally, this miracle has unfolded before her eyes. To describe the impact of this turn of events on Kevin would be an understatement. His emotions were instantly reignited, and he resumed regular communication with Sofia. Meanwhile, his financial situation had greatly improved. Without his wife's knowledge, Kevin discreetly established a substantial hidden budget, enabling him to provide financial support to Sofia and her child. He effortlessly began covering the rent for an apartment in Moscow, effectively offering complete assistance to the girl and her child. Furthermore, Kevin's children had reached their teenage years, with ages of 13 and 17, which significantly lessened his level of responsibility towards their future. Additionally, a short while prior to this moment, Kevin's mother, who had consistently supported her daughter-in-law and strongly advocated for family preservation, had sadly passed away. Consequently, most of the factors that had contributed to the family's preservation 4 years ago had now become irrelevant and no longer held the same weight. Following a year of residing in Moscow, Sofia's relationship with Kevin grew remarkably strong. With the freedom to not work, she dedicated her time to a sports club, taking care of her physical well-being and presenting herself in an admirable manner. She lavished Kevin with affection, attention, and particularly intimacy. Delighted by the state of affairs, Kevin discreetly diverted funds from his wife and invested in a joint construction project. At present, he temporarily registered the apartment under his best friend's name, with the intention of filing for divorce once the grand new residence was completed. However, a significant issue arose as the smitten man started urging Sofia to have a child with him. At the age of 32, Sofia, who had only recently started experiencing the freedom of living without the responsibilities of caring for a young child, her daughter was 4 years old, was now relishing her newfound independence in the vibrant capital. She had no desire to revert back to her previous circumstances. Moreover, since she was not yet married to Kevin and he had not initiated divorce proceedings, and with the completion of the under-construction apartment still years away, the timing and practicality of having another child were far from ideal. Another significant source of discontent for Sofia was the fact that the apartment being constructed through their joint equity participation as a future married couple was not registered in her name, but instead in Kevin's friend's name. Kevin struggled to provide a clear explanation to Sofia regarding this decision, leaving her feeling offended and raising doubts about the sincerity of Kevin's intentions. Given that Kevin, now 46 years old, had previously ended their relationship under pressure from his wife, Sofia began to question whether he would actually follow through with the divorce. In search of a solution to her predicament, Sofia shifted her attention towards a colleague from her hometown, whom we shall refer to as Mikhail. This man, 3 years younger than Sofia, worked at the same organization where she had previously served as an economist. Sofia and Mikhail had shared an intimate relationship that ran parallel to her involvement with Kevin, but had come to an end when Sofia got married and subsequently went on maternity leave. Sofia had kept her connection with Mikhail a secret, maintaining a double life. To the best of my knowledge, Kevin remained oblivious to Mikhail's existence, and Mikhail had never been acquainted with Kevin. Residing in Moscow, supported financially by Kevin, and perceiving limited prospects in their relationship beyond financial benefits, Sofia commenced active communication with Mikhail. She began persuading this unmarried yet seemingly promising man to relocate to Moscow, informing him that she had already secured employment for herself and would assist him in finding a respectable job as well. Naturally, she omitted any mention of her actual living situation with her wealthy lover. According to the official account, she claimed to have rented her own apartment and worked remotely as a freelance auditor from home. Unfortunately for Sofia, the underlying message conveyed in her communication with Michael mirrored the same sentiments that she had recently expressed to Kevin, ultimately luring him in. In an attempt to dispel any doubts in Michael's mind, she composed a lengthy romantic message on his cell phone. The main points of this message included expressing the sheer delight she experienced in their intimate encounters and their loving relationship, portraying her engagement with her future husband as a misguided and impulsive reaction to the cooling of her relationship with Michael. Clarifying that her marriage was not based on love, but rather a means to forget the one she truly loved, that is, Michael. She confessed to not loving her husband at all, revealing that her pregnancy was an endeavor to alleviate the emotional anguish caused by the loss of her lover, Michael. Admitting that neither marriage nor childbirth helped her forget her past love for Michael. Explaining why she could not continue living with her unloved husband, leading to their divorce. After relocating to Moscow, she made an effort to move on from Michael, but it proved to be beyond her capabilities, rendering it impossible. Expressing her sincere hope that the man she loves is mature enough to be with her forever. She eagerly awaits the moment when their romantic tale with Michael will transform into reality. These very statements and revelations were discovered by Kevin when he took advantage of Sophia being in the shower and decided to read the messages on her cell phone. He had a reason to do so. Kevin noticed that Sophia's young daughter, who had grown accustomed to communicating with her mother's colleague Michael via Skype, accidentally referred to him as Michael twice instead of Kevin. Driven by jealousy, Kevin felt compelled to test Sophia's fidelity. According to Kevin's account during our meeting, when he read the correspondence, it felt as if the world came crashing down around him. When Sophia emerged from the bathroom, all he could muster was a question, filled with anguish and disbelief. Why did you do this? Why would you betray me like this? Everything was going so well between us, and I trusted you so deeply. Sophia was evidently caught off guard by the unexpected turn of events, leaving her ill-prepared to handle the situation with the necessary cunning and ingenuity. In an attempt to diffuse the tension, she resorted to treating the correspondence as a joke, attempting to convince Kevin that it was intentionally orchestrated for him to discover. She claimed that it was a ploy to incite jealousy in Kevin, compelling him to expedite his divorce and fully commit to their relationship. Furthermore, she asserted that Michael did not exist at all. The correspondence had been conducted with a friend who had agreed to play the role of a non-existent admirer. However, Kevin, being a discerning individual, carefully examined all the facts and drew the appropriate conclusions. He astutely observed that if Michael didn't exist, it would be unlikely for Sophia's daughter to mistakenly call Kevin by that name. This led him to believe that their communication on the phone or via Skype was indeed genuine. Kevin promptly confirmed this by dialing Michael's number from Sophia's phone and hearing a voice that bore no resemblance to his friend Sophia. Despite Sophia's immediate explanation that Michael was her friend's actual husband who agreed to assist his wife, Kevin remained skeptical and unconvinced. He realized that the presence of another man in Sophia's life offered a plausible explanation as to why she and her friend had not conceived a child throughout their year-long relationship. It became evident to Kevin that there was no reason to conceive a child with someone with whom there was no long-term future planned. The conversation between Kevin and Sophia was undoubtedly intense and heated. This can be inferred from the fact that when Kevin returned home, he couldn't bear the weight of the situation any longer and shared everything that had transpired with his wife. Remarkably, his wife, perceiving the gravity of the situation, acted wisely and calmly. Once again, she forgave her confused husband, who had unwittingly fallen into the trap of deceit. However, this did not alleviate the burden for Kevin. Consequently, after consulting with psychics and even undergoing treatment in the Department of Nervous Diseases, he ultimately decided to seek my professional assistance. The man remained plagued by the same question. Why did Sophia treat him so cruelly? Everything they had together was so wonderful. It took time for him to grasp the logic behind women's behavior in such situations, as it tends to follow a certain pattern. Typically, women take into consideration the following factors. It is challenging to place trust in a man who has already once abandoned his partner and disappeared without a trace. It is even more challenging to trust a man whose wife has proven her determination in fighting for her marriage. A man in his 30s is often deemed more appealing than a man in his 40s. This is especially true when the former is unmarried and has a solid education, offering potential for career advancement and financial growth. By withholding the ownership of the under construction apartment from his mistress, the married man showcased a lack of trust and deprived her of any financial stake in their relationship's continuation. He failed to provide her with assurance that in the event of a potential separation, she would receive financial compensation for the years invested, thus risking leaving her with a child and uncertain future. These factors likely played a significant role in Sophia's actions, leading her to seek a new path in her relationship with the unmarried man. The most crucial factor is that a married man often hesitates to initiate divorce proceedings, which poses significant risks for the mistress. Kevin's journey of psychological recovery was a lengthy one because he discovered the betrayal while still deeply in love. The blow to his heart was immense. Moreover, he was terrified to realize that the heartfelt words about irreplaceable love for him, which supposedly prompted the girl to leave her husband, were merely manipulative tactics of a cunning mistress, capable of being directed towards any other man. In Kevin's view, this experience left him living in a fog, with nothing to hold on to, no reliability, and a lack of trust in people. It was during this time that he truly comprehended the pain he had inflicted upon his wife and understood the immense difficulty she faced in forgiving and moving forward. He made it his goal to compensate for her emotional suffering by creating a complete sense of family comfort and never betraying her again. Interestingly, having survived 2 assassination attempts in the tumultuous 90s, Kevin stated that compared to the deceitfulness of the woman he loved, the knives and guns of the assassins were trifles. This leads us to an important realization. A lie can be as devastating as a knife. Deception in love inflicts a deeper wound than any assassin's dagger. However, the most crucial lesson from this story is that mistresses can be incredibly cruel to their married lovers who fail to demonstrate their financial worth and, most importantly, show genuine intent to leave their families. Thus, unfaithful husbands risk being deceived by those with whom they cheat on their wives. This reinforces the notion that by cheating on their wives, husbands are ultimately cheating themselves.